You're listening to the Off Balance Podcast, where faith, family, and business collide. Hosted by Brooks Deming, Doctor of Business Administration, business coach, and resilience expert. Each episode features real-life conversations to help entrepreneurs like you build resilience and lead with confidence.
Welcome back to Off Balance. I'm your host, Dr. Brooks. Today on Off Balance, we're joined by Hannah Bethman, a women's health coach who holds a master's of science in nutrition. Hannah helps women finally get to the root of their digestive and hormonal struggles. After walking through her own journey with gastritis, migraines, and hormone chaos, Hannah turned her healing into a mission to help others do the same. So please welcome to the show, Hannah Bethman.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Hannah. Welcome to Off Balance. So I told listeners a little bit about you, but can you introduce yourself, tell them who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm a women's health and nutrition coach, and I work primarily with women who are struggling with digestive and hormonal related issues. So things like fatigue, IBS, indigestion, PCOS, endo, painful periods, migraines, and many other, symptoms and illnesses. And I just really help them get to the root cause of their symptoms and improve their life and symptoms through functional nutrition and lifestyle.
And so you mentioned that you walked through this journey yourself. Did that play a factor in you getting a degree in nutrition?
Yeah, so my story really began when I was a young child. From the age of about 5, I started dealing with some pretty severe GI issues every day, stomach burning, feeling nauseous, chronic regurgitation. Everything I ate would just come back up hours and hours later. When I became a teenager, I would joke that I felt like a cow, because of the way they just, food goes down and then they regurgitate it, chew their cud. I mean, it was gross, but that was mostly everything I ate. We never really had any answers. My symptoms would kind of come and go based on how I ate. My parents tried to feed me, healthy diet. And looking back, my diet was pretty average, which, really means that there are some gaps in it and some missing nutrients. But overall, I didn't have an excessively unhealthy diet. So it was a mystery. And kind of fast forward to, then once I started to hit puberty, of course, a lot of the hormonal issues started. So I would get really debilitating migraines, the kind, it's not just a headache. It's a headache that really leaves you debilitated and just unable to do anything. Just kind of have to lay in a dark room. Every little thing can trigger your symptoms. I would often get nauseous from that as well. I would also just have a lot of off days where I felt fatigued and like a feeling of brain fog and just kind of poor concentration. Any woman who deals with this knows what I'm talking about. And so, just a lot of health issues. And so fast forward to when I was 15 years old. To make a long story short, I ended up just really having a huge curiosity about why chronic disease is such an issue. First I started thinking more about gluten intolerance because my mom had dealt with that. Kind of a long story, but eventually, I started thinking about my own symptoms. And I did some research, whatever research a 15-year-old can do. My mom had some health books lying around, and I really just dove into it. And I really saw the connection between diet, the food that we eat, our lifestyle choices, and our symptoms and our body. And it just all made sense to me. I've always been fascinated by science and biology, and it just was making sense that, the food that we eat would have a huge impact on our organs, on our bodies. And so basically, I completely overhauled my entire diet after a couple months. I just jumped right in. And within no more than 2 weeks, I had a complete reversal of my GI issues. My stomach felt so calm, not inflamed, certainly no pain. I could actually eat food without it coming back up. And needless to say, I was just blown away. And this started my whole journey into nutrition, health, and healing. I've been really passionate about spreading the word ever since. But of course, my journey did not end there. That was only the beginning. For many years, I still struggled with consistency in my diet. I had a very all or nothing mentality. And so I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to eat like this for the rest of my life. No junk food. And then, of course, I'd have a cookie one day or ice cream. And then I would just feel like a failure. Oh, I failed. This is going to ruin my health. I was kind of influenced, unfortunately, by some people online in the wellness space, misinformation. And so I struggled with this all or nothing mindset, and for many years would just kind of yo-yo back and forth. I'd eat super healthy for a week, have great gut health, and then the next week I'd be like, okay, well, I failed. I'm not even going to worry about my diet for the next month, till the end of till I'm done with my classes or something like that. But, once it took me a while, but I eventually just got really honest with myself and I recognized the all or nothing mindset. And, I worked on that and I moved forward, and I saw, of course, when I did that, I saw just more consistency in my symptoms and I could just live my life pain free, of all these gut issues. But then, even then, I still struggled with the hormonal problems. For some reason, that didn't go away. Still had the migraines, the fatigue. And so I got really frustrated with that. This was just a few years ago. I just was like, why was I able to improve my gut, but I can't help my hormones? It doesn't make sense. And as it turns out, I almost gave up at one point. But I eventually realized that I just had some missing pieces in my diet and lifestyle that were actually really basic, but just almost so basic that it was foundational, but I completely overlooked it. And I can go into depth later if need be. I wasn't eating enough, just in general. I wasn't eating enough protein. My blood sugar was very unstable throughout the day. I realize that now based on my symptoms. I probably had issues with detoxification. Certainly, gut health plays a big role. I was chronically stressed. Being a student definitely doesn't help. And so, just all these things. And once I shifted these things, honestly, within a month, I had the best period of my life. Before that, I was also starting to get some heavy periods with some weird pelvic bloating and pain in between. And that was a recent development. I was starting to get shorter periods. So definitely right before this, my hormones were becoming even more unbalanced than they already were. And so all of that just went away. And the migraines that month, I remember I had only one small headache around my period that was like a small nuisance and was not debilitating. And yeah, so just ever since then, I feel like I cracked the code on that for myself. And I've continued, at the time I continued to learn more in my master's program. And now I work with clients one-on-one and help them with a lot of the same issues that I dealt with, especially fatigue and digestive problems, headaches. And yeah, I just really believe in the power of just nourishing our bodies and getting back to the basics, sometimes digging deeper if need be. I believe that we're part of God's design and we are truly meant to live our lives as women pain-free, clear-headed, feel fully at home in our bodies. I don't believe that we're meant to live with chronic pain and suffering and just that we need to, really listen to our bodies and understand what they need.
Your journey is very interesting because I know personally as a woman, I have been told it's more mental sometimes, or you could be stressed. So, what challenges did you face trying to advocate for yourself with medical professionals being so young?
So I remember I think I was about 21. And I finally, like growing up, actually, my mom didn't take me to the doctor very much. And so I was like, I really don't want to go, but I was like, I don't know what else to do. So I made myself go. And I just went in for a basic checkup. And she basically just told me, we can put you on birth control. And essentially, that is because essentially, like hormonal migraines and period pain are triggered by when we have a natural dip in estrogen and progesterone, especially around our periods. Sometimes, around ovulation, things can be wonky too. That can be a trigger for a lot of pain. It's not the root cause, but it can be a trigger. And so so that's kind of the basic premise behind putting women on birth control. I have clients that were put on that as a teenager for extremely painful periods. So that's basically all she offered me. She did also offer me to try like a new medication. It was Nurtec. So at the time, I had also been just taking I'd switch between ibuprofen, Excedrin, Tylenol, and they would work for like a few cycles. And then all of a sudden, it's like my body would become immune to them and it just wouldn't work anymore. So she's like, oh, try Nurtec. And so I tried that, didn't do a thing. And then I was like, I'm not going on birth control. And so just after that, I was like, well, I guess I'm on my own again. And that was that. And then it was about a couple years later that I really saw that made the shifts. But yeah.
That is so interesting. And so you were a student. You mentioned that you had to change your diet. So what was that like trying to adjust and live a normal life?
Yeah. Thankfully, I did live with my parents. So I will say that made a big difference. I do feel bad for college students who are living in a dorm and there's really not often a kitchen, not a whole lot of options. That does make it very difficult. I almost felt a little funny because I was like the only one who would even try to eat healthier. And some of the foods I was eating, I was almost like self-conscious, which is so funny to me now. Now I don't care at all, you know? And people really are not like, it's not a big deal. But yeah, just at the time, it was really just kind of the mental side of things like, oh, I don't fit in. And I will say it was challenging with me, being a teenager, especially and like trying to eat my own way. And my parents, thankfully, like they were very health conscious, but, still there were kind of like things that I wanted to make and like, oh, we can't make that, or we can't buy those ingredients or just little challenges like that. I'd say the biggest thing too, actually, was, when I was growing up, I always thought that eating healthy or clean just meant that like your diet is devoid of flavor and fun. And you just kind of, like my parents, their healthy meal would be like, okay, they'd make like salmon with brown rice and steamed broccoli. And there'd be like no seasoning, no oil. Like it was just the most boring thing. And I just had that ingrained in my head as a kid. And then later as a teenager, like, oh, this is what I have to do to be healthy. Thankfully, like as part of my journey, I read a couple books, cookbooks actually, of just really like one was Julie Bower's Paleo OMG cookbook. And she just had some clean, recipes in there with whole foods, meat and veggies and fruits and vegetables, but prepared in ways that just were like simple yet satisfying. A big part of my journey was actually just teaching myself to cook and just learning to cook whole foods in a delicious way. And what I found too, I really try to instill this in my clients as well. It's like, you don't just have to drink green smoothies and eat salads all day. Salads are great, but there's so much more to eating healthy than just that. They're often pleasantly surprised to find that that's true, that yes, I can actually have satisfaction in my diet and still see gains in my health over time.
So you was dealing with two different things. You were dealing with gut health as well as hormonal issues. What foods did you recognize to help you with your gut issues?
Yeah. So with my gut, one of the first things that I did was honestly, I just started making a smoothie in the morning. I mean, I would do like a banana with almond milk, peanut butter. I mean, really simple. And at the time, that was actually part of my hormonal problem. I was not including any protein and it was under eating. But for my gut, though, honestly, it was just like whole foods in general. So what I found is that for especially upper GI issues, anytime there's any inflammation, we need foods that are going to be soothing to the stomach. And so these are, honestly, fruits and vegetables can have compounds in them that can be almost like mucus on our stomachs. So with gastritis specifically, which is what I dealt with, the stomach becomes inflamed. And it's not necessarily because we have too much stomach acid, but the stomach lining or the mucus layer for different reasons is kind of worn down. And so different fruits and vegetables that can replicate that mucus are just really soothing and can really quench that inflammation. Things like pears, sweet potatoes, root veggies, blueberries, broccoli, those have always been amazing for my gut. Now, for people with more lower GI issues like bloating, gas, that has more to do with our intestines. Some of these things can actually ironically be iffy and cause gas. So gut issues can be very complicated and depends on the person. Sometimes like more lower FODMAP veggies can be help fennel, leafy greens. There's different options. And then also in general, outside of just having a direct impact on my symptoms, over time, working on balancing my blood sugar, making sure I'm getting enough protein and healthy fats in throughout the day. That's just very important in general for reducing inflammation, regardless of what specific issue we're dealing with. And now I just always make sure that my meals are very satiating. I eat a lot more meat than I used to than when I was a teenager, which I know some people think, oh, meat's bad, but definitely a misconception. Just unprocessed meat, beef, grass-fed, pasture-raised can really be wonderful for our bodies.
And then you also mentioned that you work with clients. What things do you help them with?
Yeah, I help people for any chronic digestive or hormonal issue that they may be experiencing. Things like PCOS, endometriosis, IBS. Those are common diagnoses nowadays. 1 in 5 women struggle with either PCOS or endo. 1 in 5 women deal with migraines. But sometimes women have all these vague symptoms and they don't even get a proper diagnosis. I feel brain fog and fatigue throughout the day. I can't get through the day without 2 cups of coffee. Or they wake up at 3 a.m. and can't get back to sleep. Sometimes they're just told, oh, it's perimenopause, or, oh, you're just stressed, And so sometimes, even if it's just vague symptoms, I'll work with women for that. And we can work through that for sure.
So if someone is listening and they feel like you are a fit, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so they can visit my website at www.hannahbwellness.com. And they can just go to my services page, click any of the links that are in there, and book a free chat with me. So I do offer free chats for people to just discuss what their main health concerns are, what it would look like to work with me, what they've already tried, and just, see if we're a good fit.
Okay, and I'll definitely make sure that I have your information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you, because I know personally for me, the doctors, they really gave me a runaround as far as hormone issues, gut issues, and I really just felt like I was in a hamster wheel. And I'm like, someone has to listen and take me seriously. When it comes to helping women, what misconceptions have you come across from the average woman when she finds you and then she starts to kind of get things back on track?
Yeah, lots of misconceptions with kind of every sphere. I think the first thing, of course, even before they come to see me, is just thinking that these issues are normal, that, oh, it's just part of being a woman. It's just, or you're just getting old. And it's just not true. We see indigenous groups of people around the world, in Africa, in different parts of Asia, used to be parts of Europe even, where women did not report these issues. I mean, people questioned them about them. I mean, this is a whole other rabbit hole, and they just didn't have, painful periods, and they had lower rates of complications even in pregnancy. And so I think that's just the first misconception, is thinking that these things are normal. But then even once they realize that and they come to see me, there's a lot of other misconceptions as well with the diet side of things. I think a lot of women nowadays think that they're eating clean. Sometimes they even lean towards vegan, dare I say. And they're like, I just don't understand. I'm eating all organic, no toxins. And that's wonderful. I'm all reducing our toxic exposure in organic. That's a big part too, in our hormones. But, at the end of the day, I'll look at their food journal and I just see all these missing pieces. Oftentimes, believe it or not, they're only eating around like 12 to 1,300 calories a day, which that is just that's how many calories we need. It's called our BMR, or how many calories we need at rest. If we're just laying in bed all day, not moving a muscle, that's how much we would need. But then by the time we get up, move around, most women need at least 1,800 calories a day. If they are older, if they're postmenopausal, sometimes, 1,700, but certainly no less than that. And so it's shocking, but I have found that this is very common. It's just literally under eating. And so, yeah, it's just like breaking through that and showing them what they need. So I actually use a tool called Chronometer. And it is free to use for anyone, and you can actually plug in everything that you ate for the day, and it actually gives you a profile of an estimation of how many nutrients that you consume. So it will show you, oh, you consume this much vitamin B1, this much, omega-3s. And it's just so common to be deficient or to not be taking in enough of the right nutrients. Yeah, so just really getting back to the basics is important. And I'd also like to add that another misconception is women who, if they don't necessarily have overt gut symptoms, like maybe they're like, I'm fine, like I don't really get bloated, and then that's great. But then they think that means that their gut health is perfect. And the truth is that even without overt gut symptoms, we can still have an imbalance of bacteria in our guts that can still have an impact on the rest of our bodies. And, what we need a good balance between our good bacteria and maybe some other types that are not so good or they can kind of grow out of control. And so those can play a big role in our hormonal symptoms as well.
I know I'm probably not eating enough calories. I'm struggling trying to get in enough protein.
Yeah, protein is, I know, it's a big one. And yeah, especially with breakfast, a lot of women, it's like their go-to breakfast is, a cereal with milk or a bagel, sometimes just coffee and nothing else. Or maybe like sometimes if they make an attempt, they'll have like 1 or 2 eggs. And I'm like, I'm so glad to see that, but it's really just not enough. Yeah.
That's a lot of calories.
Yeah. Some women who, if they're approaching menopause, sometimes like 1,700 might be more realistic. It does depend. I look at this in depth with my clients. I'll take into account their age, their weight, their height, their metabolism, their thyroid function. But yeah, I mean, generally no less than 1,700.
Oh my God. Wow. That's all I have is wow, because I know I'm not getting that much.
Okay. Do you know which meal is probably the issue? Like breakfast?
It's probably all of them because for breakfast, I'll do like a Greek yogurt with granola on top with some blueberries, some raspberries, a little honey. That's breakfast. And then I'll have a coffee, but it's a protein coffee. So I try to get my protein with the coffee and the collagen creamer, which is also protein. So that's about 30 grams there. And then I'll do a salad for lunch, but with the salad, it's not a lot of protein in it. It'll probably have eggs cut up in it and then a little bit of meat, not a lot. And then for dinner, it's light. So yeah, I'm not getting it. I know I'm not. I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something that our bodies can adapt to over time. I've seen this before where women, like, they'll kind of, again, it's very, they don't realize it. It's so common. They'll start to eat less. And after years and years, your metabolism can slow over time. Sometimes they'll try to eat more and then they struggle to because now your body's not used to it. It is important to kind of build up slowly. And yeah. But yeah, definitely the meat aspect is something that, again, gets such a bad rap. But honestly, it has so many important nutrients that we need for our hormones in our gut, like zinc, copper, B12, many other B vitamins, and of course, just bioavailable protein, even fat, all the things, because our hormones, they're made of protein and cholesterol. And fat, all these things serve as the building blocks. It's insidious, we can get away for a while with undernourishment, but eventually it catches up to us. It certainly caught up to me when I was a teenager, but some women, it can take decades even, and they might not realize it till they hit perimenopause.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And then you also mentioned women thinking that heavy menstruals, migraines, and fatigue is normal. So, what would be kind of a inkling that that's not normal? So, like if someone is dealing with that, would it be consistently, like months at a time, or how would they know that, okay, this is not normal and I need to seek us to help?
Mm. I mean, in one train of thought, I would almost think that any level of dysfunction is a sign that something is amiss, even if it's on a small level. But certainly, if a woman is dealing with more than one migraine a month, especially if they're severe, if it's the type that just leaves you wiped out, definitely a sign that that's excess inflammation. Different things could be going on in the body, again, with the gut, nutrient deficiencies, and high stress, of course. And with the periods, our cycles really, what I have found is that even though they say, oh, yeah, your cycle can be, 21 to like 30 something days apart, that's a very wide range. And for a long time, mine were 24 to 25 days. Technically, it's normal. I found that, when I eat healthier, regulate naturally to about 28 to 29 days. I think that the cycle length is a big indicator. If there's heavy bleeding, blood clots that are larger than the size of a dime, if, a woman is soaking through like a pad or tampon once every hour or two, definitely all signs that something is amiss. Of course, just feeling fatigued despite getting sleep every night is a very common scenario I see. I just worked with a client a few months ago, and that was her main problem. She was getting plenty of sleep, but she just felt so wiped out every day. And it really just came back to a lot of what we're talking about. And so when we made those shifts, she had a huge improvement in her energy.
Yeah, that is very interesting because I know a lot of the times we contribute it to stress. And so what are some strategies that they can use to kind of help them to alleviate the stress?
Are you tired of pushing forward but still feeling stuck? You've tried motivation, books, and other programs before, but consistency, boundaries, and resilience still feel out of reach. That's exactly why Dr. Brooks created the Rise coaching program. In just 8 weeks, you will walk through a proven framework to help you get rooted in purpose, identify boundaries, strengthen resilience, and execute with consistency. Imagine finally saying no without guilt, bouncing back faster from setbacks, and leading with the confidence you know you were created for. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start building momentum, this is your moment. Visit brooksdeming.com to book your spot in the Rise coaching program today.
Great question. I know. And that's the thing is nowadays we have so much stress from jobs, from relationships, and just everything. The world is just so wild. And so, on one hand, I almost think that sometimes we almost need to dig deeper and think, okay, is this job or this relationship truly serving me and my best, highest self? And so sometimes it might even come down to a hard decision that needs to be made, but that it's just kind of want to throw that out there. And that's something to having boundaries, but sometimes that's not realistic, or at least those things take time. And so, so we do need ways to manage it. There are so many techniques that I like to think of as supplements, like the equivalent of supplements to help managing our stress better. So one thing is super basic, but getting outside more often in the sun, especially in the morning. There's so much research on the effects of sun and our circadian rhythm, which is like our body's schedule on our hormones, our gut, reducing inflammation. When we get sunlight, that helps us make serotonin and dopamine, which serotonin gets converted to melatonin at night. So it helps us sleep better, helps us have more energy during the day, helps us just have a better mood, helps us manage stress better, essentially. Just gaining more awareness and then starting to practice things like breath work is a great one. Especially there's a super simple one I like to start people off with is like the 4-6 breath. So it's a 4-second inhale. You just breathe in through your nose gently, and then 6-second exhale where you breathe out through your nose or through your mouth slowly. Essentially, what we see in research is when the exhale is greater than the inhale, then that puts our body into what we call a parasympathetic state. So essentially rest and digest mode. So that's, where our body is able to just calm down, heal, reduce inflammation, detoxify, digest our food better. Hormones can, kind of work together better. Yeah. So just honestly, even doing that for, sometimes it's hard to create new habits. So even just starting for like 3 to 5 minutes a day and just building off of that, this and that, it can be so hard to just stop. And so even making that break helps to show your subconscious that I'm here for myself. I'm working towards improving my, my body, my health, and then just kind of building on that, and then of course you're showing your body that you're ready to wind down.
So what's next for you, and how do you see your work impacting women in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to continue to spread the word and work with women. I think that when we as women are truly, when we feel our best, it impacts how we show up in life as a whole, in our relationships, in our job. When we don't feel good, when we're just running on nothing, essentially, we can't show up the way we want to. We can't be fully present. We can't accomplish our goals, our dreams. But when we do feel great, when we feel energetic, when we're pain-free or mostly pain-free, it just opens up so many opportunities and gives us so much more freedom in our lives, really removes the obstacles and just makes us so much more limitless. So, yeah, I just hope to help women understand, just help them listen to their bodies and know what they need and understand what it takes to truly nourish themselves so that they can find more freedom.
Yes, this topic can be very uncomfortable for some women. So if a woman is listening and she is just she feels like she's reached her limit, what is one step that you would encourage her to take after listening to this episode?
Yeah, I'd say start with your morning routine. Start with pick one meal and just really focus on that. So starting with breakfast, because what we eat in the morning really sets the tone for the day, sets our energy levels. Starting on fixing your breakfast. And, this can look like working on even just getting more protein and healthy fat in the morning to help stabilize the blood sugar. Practically speaking, I like to say, dinner for breakfast. A really simple meal is you can meal prep this is like a healthy breakfast hash with some kind of ground meat, beef, chicken, turkey, pork, whatever veggies you like, some kind of healthy, slow digesting carb that has fiber like sweet potatoes, even thinking outside the box of things that you wouldn't normally grab at the grocery store, like squash is in season now, butternut squash, pumpkin, parsnips, and just if you like that.
Childhood trauma.
Oh no.
It was cooked like your parents' salmon.
Okay.
I mean, it was not.
See, I do understand that people you hear Brussels sprouts and you're like, "Oh no," but that's the thing is the way you cook it can make a big difference. But hey, if that's scaring you, then just there's other options.
I'll give it. It was a squash.
You're like, oh,
But no, those were all great. But I was just having a memory lapse.
but
But no, but those are all good.
yeah.
And I like that you said make dinner or breakfast because that does make sense if you have a big breakfast.
Mhm. And the Greek yogurt that you mentioned, that's a great starting point. But, just sometimes adding to that. I mean, honestly, some days I'll just do yogurt with some eggs on the side, and some more fruit. Sometimes it's just a matter of adding a couple other things to the meal. And the collagen's great.
So that was really good. So as we wrap up, what's one message or a piece of advice that you want to leave with our listeners who may be navigating their own hormonal journey or gut health?
Mm. I'd say just start with building more awareness around your body, your stress, everything, and just really tuning in to what your body is trying to tell you. Maybe assessing even things like how many bowel movements are you having a bowel movement every day? Are you constipated? Are you digesting your food well? Do you truly have energy throughout the day without coffee, without needing extra things to keep you awake? Are you getting good sleep? And if you're having issues in one of these areas, maybe you're getting headaches, just a sign to dig deeper and start thinking about more how, food and stress and sleep and sun and maybe even toxins might be affecting you. And yeah, just get started, with the breakfast I mentioned, getting more sunlight in the morning. There's so many other things too. And, sometimes digging deeper is needed. And so, sometimes we do need to dig deeper into gut health and functional lab testing.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It's such
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. I have learned so much from our short time together. So I would definitely make sure that I do a better job of getting my calories and just a better overall job. I run a lot. What's running a lot if the diet is not there? So again, thank you for bringing that to my attention because I knew I was struggling in the area of protein, but now looking at the overall diet, I look here. Yeah. So thank you for joining us here on Off.
Thanks for listening. Please rate this episode and share it with your family and friends. To learn more about your host or to book a coaching session, visit www.brooksdeming.com. Until next time, rise.
Balance.
Hi, I'm Tiffany of Tiffany Brown Designs. With over 20 years of creative experience across industries, I create and elevate brands one design at a time through intentional graphic and brand design, polished film and video editing, and creative artistry. Even the music you're hearing right now, that was produced by me. I also create custom tracks for websites, intros and outros, and content. So what are you waiting for? Visit TiffanyCBrownGD.com and let's bring your vision to life.